I am ready to share with you all the books that I read in April. I actually picked 5 books to be added to my April TBR, but out of the 5 books, I only read 2 books, and I read 4 extra books that I did not put in my TBR, but they just kind of piqued my interest and they drew me in, so I decided to pick it up in April. Before I go over all of the books that I read in April, let me just give you a quick recap of all of the books that I picked for my April TBR. I picked my April TBR from my 2026 TBR list. I have 50 book titles that I put in a jar, and those book titles are the ones that I really want to try and read this year, because last year I said that I would read them, but I didn't get a chance to. Anyways, the first book that I picked for my April TBR was Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I definitely wanted to start one of the series that she has. She probably has at least 3 or 4 now, and I have heard pretty great review about this Rose Hill series, so I wanted to pick up the first book, but I didn't get a chance to read it last month in April. Maybe I will pick it up again sometime in the next few months. The second book that I picked for my April TBR was Margot's Got Money Troubles by Ruthie Thorpe. This one has been adapted to a TV show on Apple TV now. I think all of the episodes are probably already out. I'm not really sure on the details if there's like multiple seasons. I'm assuming maybe not, but the premise of this book sound really interesting, and I think some of the events that happen in the book also happen in Vegas, because I know that they were filming at the downtown Vegas area, so I'm just curious how they ended up there. I unfortunately did not read this in April. The third book that I picked was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I actually read 66 pages. Oh, I thought I read less than that, but I definitely will try and pick it up again sometime in the near future, because this sounds pretty interesting. I usually have a hard time with books with a lot of characters. Like, I actually have written down all of the characters in this book that I learned on my whiteboard, like in my office, just to be sure that I know which character is which. So I'm definitely gonna try this book again. I definitely want to start this series and hopefully finish it sometime soon, because I've heard pretty great things about this one. So these next 2 books are the one that I picked for April and that I actually read in April. This next one is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is technically a second book or a companion book of Better Than the Movies that I read last year, and I know a lot of people are saying that this book is kind of unnecessary to read, especially if you have already read Better Than the Movies. And before jumping into this book, I thought it was just the same timeline, but the story is from Wes's POV, which is the love interest from the first book. However, they are different timelines. This book happened when both of them are in college. I don't really want to spoil too much about how the story starts in this book, because if you haven't read the first book, it might spoil it for you. And I feel like in the first book, Better Than the Movies, we really focus on Liz's struggles and life, and this one we focus more on Wes's life and struggles, and let's just say family tragedy, and how it kind of impacted their relationship. I still enjoy this book a lot, especially because it takes place in UCLA. I did not go to UCLA, but I have went on a tour, I guess, of UCLA campus, so I kind of know where some of the dining halls that they mention in this book, and I've actually been there because a couple of my friends went to UCLA, and one of my friends who actually lived in UCLA when she was a freshman had a lot of dining hall credits, so she took me to eat at this one place that were mentioned in this book. So it was just kind of cool that if you have been to UCLA or if you went to UCLA, I think this book will definitely brings back a lot of memories. Overall, I still highly recommend this one. Even though people are saying that this book is unnecessary, it's a completely different story, and it definitely will add into the story from the first book. So the other book that was in my April TBR that I actually read in March because I could not wait was The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book in the Off-Campus series, and I was so excited to read it because I watched the trailer for the TV show adaptation that is coming out, I think, in just a couple weeks. And I just really wanted to read the first book because this is what season 1 is based off. And I love this book so much. I love the emotional connection between the two main characters, Garrett, and Hannah. I also just love how this whole story brings me back to my college years. It mentioned a lot about lecture halls and having to sit at a lecture for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on how often your class is. It talks about midterm exams, it talks about midterm makeups, syllabus, and all of that. It just really brings me back to my college years. I also, like I said, love the emotional connection between Hannah and Garrett. Hannah is a music major and Garrett is a history major, but he is the captain of the hockey team. And he kind of like flunked the ethics exam, and all of the people in the class also failed except for Hannah. So he asked her if she can tutor him, and the story goes from there. I'm really hoping that the TV show adaptation will be great. I know there's a few things that they changed. For example, the other kind of like love interest, Justin, in this book is also an athlete, but I think in the TV show he's gonna be a music major just like Hannah, so there's like two different type of guys. Anyways, cannot wait to watch the show adaptation, but also continuing on with the series, hopefully sometime soon. So these 4 books I read in April, but I did not pick it as my TBR. Let's talk about The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. I read the first book in the series, The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I think, last year. I rated it 2-star because I just don't like the fact that the connection between the two main characters are very physical. I don't mind that, honestly, but another thing about the MMC, Logan, I think that's his name, he doesn't really share a lot of his life with the main character, Jeannie, I think. And I feel like Jeannie find out a lot about him from his friends that she befriended in the book because she just moved into Dream Harbor. I just don't like that fact. I feel like this one, the characters Hazel and Noah, I like their story a little bit better. But to me, it's still not worth the 3 stars, so I still rated this book 2-star. I definitely read this a little bit faster than the first one because I just feel like the story flows better. But I feel like after I read 50 or 60% of the book, I was just not as interested in it anymore as the first half of the book. I definitely like the reading experience of this book better than the first one, because I feel like I know a lot of the characters that are mentioned here from the first book, and I kind of like appreciate their cameo in this book. So if you're trying to read this series but you didn't read the first one, I feel like you're gonna be completely lost of who's who. So it's great that I read the first one because I know a lot of the characters. These 2 books are the only ones that I have physically. I don't know if I will continue on with this book series or not, but I don't think I will be buying more of the physical copy. If I am interested in reading the 3rd book and the next few ones, I probably will just borrow them from Libby. The next book that I read after that one was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This is the 2nd book in the Part of Your World book series. They are technically interconnected standalone, but the characters from the first book is mentioned throughout the book. In this 2nd book, the main FMC is the best friend of the FMC from the first book. I honestly decided to pick this one up because I felt like I was on a verge of a reading slump, and I know that Abby Jimenez's book I do love, even though I think I only read like Part of Your World. That is the first book that I've read of hers. I also want to keep going with this series because the 3rd one is just for the summer. I want to read it in the summer, so I decided to pick it up, and I was so glad that I picked this book up because this book was really good. I think I rated this 5-star. I don't know how Abby Jimenez did it, but just the way that she wrote her book, it just flows really well. And once I read the first few pages, I was hooked and I just wanted to continue reading if I can all day long. But this book is really cute because it's about Brianna, who is she an ER doctor? I think she is. And basically she is at this point in her life where she just got a divorce and it was being finalized, and then her brother is waiting for a kidney donor, and at work she really wanted to get promoted, but the hospital that she works at just hired this new doctor, and I guess the chief doctor, who's about to retire, is trying to give this new doctor, the guy, a fair chance. So she's kind of like annoyed that she might not get this promotion that she's been working for. They didn't really get off in the right foot when they first met, his first impression to her was just really horrible, but there's a reason why. It was because he has this like social anxiety that is really, really bad, that he comes off as like rude and arrogant. But he decided to actually write her letters explaining why he is the way he is, why he seemed like he was really arrogant and rude. And then the story starts from there, and I just think it's really, really cute the way that they are connected emotionally. I also love that letter writing aspect of the book. It doesn't really last like all the way till the end, because after a few letters they sort of became comfortable with each other, especially him. So they started just to like hang out and actually talk in person. There's a scene where he talks to her on the phone for like a few hours in the rain outside when he was trying to like eat dinner or something like that. I think it was just really, really cute. The next one that I read is actually a fantasy book, which is kind of surprising to me because I am not really in the mood usually to read a fantasy book, but this book has been calling my name. And this one is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I think I devoured this book within like a few days. Usually fantasy book will take me quite a long time to read because sometimes I would have to reread pages and paragraphs just to be sure that I understand what is going on. But this book kind of like really sucked me in. I was just hooked right from the first few chapters. I have just been wanting to pick this book up because I do already have all of the books in the book series, and this book has been out for like a good 10 years, I want to say. So I feel left out that I haven't read it, and I definitely want to read this one and then read Powerless sometime in the future because both of these books are in my 2026 TBR. I've heard about the controversy between Red Queen and Powerless and how similar they are, and I just definitely want to see like how similar it is. This book has that two brothers pining for the same girl type of trope, and I definitely was rooting for this one brother. And throughout the book it seems like he was going to be the opposite of what the FMC believes, so I kind of stopped rooting for him. But then at the same time I can tell that he is definitely not in love, but he definitely wants to be with her. However, she decided to sort of create an ally with the other brother. And the twists in this book at the end, I kind of expected and kind of predicted, but I didn't really see it throughout the book. I kind of had a hunch that the twist will happen eventually because there's some scenes where another character kind of reminds her something. I don't want to spoil it, but I just cannot wait to read the second book because now I know which brother she's going to be adventuring with, and I cannot wait to read more about that and how hopefully they will succeed with whatever mission that they're trying to do in the second book and probably throughout the series. I'm currently reading Cruel Crown. I think that's what it's called. It's basically the novella that is technically a prequel before things that happen in this book, but I think it's better to read Red Queen first and then that novella because everything will make sense. I am kind of like halfway through Cruel Crown. There's two kind of like short stories in that book, and I've already read the first one and I've read a few pages of the second one, but I will try to hopefully finish reading that before May ends because I want to probably start the next book sometime soon, and I want to finish that novella first before moving on to the next book. The last book that I read in April, again, this is not in my April TBR, but I decided to pick it up because I wanted to look for like contemporary romance book, and I ended up with How Freaking Romantic by Emily Harding. This is one of the Book of the Month books that I actually purchased from my subscription. This one was from July 2025 and I have not picked it up until now, and I was surprised how good this book was. I actually read it within a day because I was just curious on what's gonna happen between our two characters. This one actually has a pretty interesting premise. So the main girl, her name was B. She has this group of friends who are basically her and two other couples. One of the couples in the group decided to get a divorce, and the love interest is actually the lawyer of one of this couple of friends that are getting a divorce. He's actually the lawyer for the husband, and obviously she is on the side of the girl best friend. Anyways, in the beginning of the book, she basically stormed into his office and kind of like cussed him off, not realizing that she's going to see him again because he is a lawyer and she is a law student about to graduate and about to take the bar in New York. Somehow they meet again in the university that she went to, and obviously she felt bad about cussing him off and just like storming into his office, but she's trying to kind of be professional, apologize, I think, for what she did. But they eventually get entangled with something that is much more than just a professional relationship. And it's just kind of cute the way that they finally connect emotionally after they spend some time together. It seems like she just wants to be friends, but they definitely feel something more. I feel like throughout the book, she kind of felt guilty of being attracted to him because he is basically the enemy. And like I said, I really enjoyed this book. I wouldn't really say this book is a fluffy romance because there are a couple things that are pretty deep about these two characters that we learn, as well as about the other like friend's character in her group of friends. I feel like the book is just really fast-paced, and if I could finish it in a day, you probably could finish it in a day as well, but I really enjoyed this one. I have not really heard anything else from Emily Harding, and I feel like now I'm gonna definitely look up what other books she has written, maybe in the past or maybe in the future. Those are all of the books that I read in April. Technically, I read The Deal in March, and I feel like now that I think about it, I have talked about this in my March reading wrap up. So for April, I read 5 books, which I think is what I would predict.